So,
I'm confused.
my presentation, yes, Moses.
Moses.
I would like to point out the lovely flowers on the robe, body lit flowers. Okay, so we all know who Moses is, right? There's nobody. Okay.
Who is he?
Who's Moses?
You did what?
Oh, I like yeah.
It's itchy. Okay. So, Moses was born a long time ago. A very long time ago in Egypt. Oh, I should probably get my notes. That might be a good idea.
That's weird.
So he was born in Egypt. Both his parents were of the tribe of Levi. When he was born, around the time he was born, the Pharaoh of Egypt commanded that all Hebrew babies be killed. Hebrew male babies be killed because he was afraid of the Hebrews taking over. So, when he was born, his mother hid him for about 3 months. And then she couldn't hide him anymore, so she got a basket and she put some mud and clay on the bottom of it, covered it in clay and tar, and then she sent him off in the river. Okay. And then as he's going along, he finally stopped where the Pharaoh's daughter was washing herself with her handmaidens, and she had one of her servants get the basket, and when they opened it, the baby started crying, and the daughter of Moses felt bad, so she took him and raised him herself. She decided
She was like Bonnie.
She knew that the child needed to be nursed, and so she had a Hebrew woman who ended up being Moses' mother come and be his nurse. Several years later, when he was older, he was out and about just walking along, and then he saw an Egyptian man beating on some Hebrews, and so it says that he looked this way and he looked that way, and then he smote him and he buried him in the dirt. And he thought that nobody knew about it, but then a couple of days later, somebody started to tease him about it, and so somebody found out, and the Pharaoh wanted to kill him for killing an Egyptian, and so he ran away to the desert, into Midian, where he sat down in a well, and some daughters of a shepherd came, and they were filling up, getting water for their father's sheep, and then some other shepherds came and started harassing them, and so Moses, took care of them and helped the girls get water, and when they went back to their house, they told their father what happened, and he was like, "Why didn't you bring the guy home?" And so they went and got him again, and the dad was so happy with him that he let him marry one of his daughters, whose name was Zipporah. So he worked for his father-in-law's name was Jethro, and he worked for him as a shepherd. Moses had a son named Gershom, and after being there for a while, one day he was out with the sheep, and he saw a bush that was on fire, and he saw that the bush wasn't being consumed. So he went to go check it out, and then God started to talk to him, and he told him that he needed to free his fellow Hebrew Israelite peoples that were in bondage in Egypt. And he told him that he'd have to go to Pharaoh and talk to him. But then Moses was kind of whiny, and he said, "But I don't speak well, I can't do that." And God told him, "It's okay, I'll be with you." But he said, "I can't do that." And so then God finally said, "Okay, your brother Aaron will be your spokesman." And so he goes to Egypt with his wife and son, and his brother Aaron meets him, and then they go to Pharaoh, and they tell him that he needs to let the people go. And they tell him that God said this. And Pharaoh said, "Why should I listen to your God?" who is he to tell me what to do? And he said no, and so then Moses was ready to give up. But then God told him again to go and see Pharaoh. And then, then they went to him again, and then the Pharaoh said if he could show him a miracle, then he would let them go. So he turned his staff into a snake. But then the Pharaoh's sorceress did the same thing, and I was impressed. But then Moses' serpent ate the other two, and that made the Pharaoh angry, and then he said he wouldn't let them go. So then the next morning, Pharaoh was out on the river, and then Moses turned the water into blood, and that made Pharaoh angry, and then his sorcerers did the exact same thing, and he still wouldn't let them go. And 7 days after that, Moses went to Pharaoh and told him that if he didn't let the Israelites go, that there would be a plague upon Egypt. He said no, and so God sent frogs, and they covered the land. And then Pharaoh called Moses to him and begged him to take the curse away. And so he did, and the frogs died, but they smelled bad, so Pharaoh got angry again and said that he wouldn't let them go. And then after that, they followed a pattern. There would be a plague, and then Pharaoh would ask Moses to get rid of it, and then he would, and then he'd get angry again. And then they did that until they went through lice, flies, all their livestock dying, boils, thunder, hail, and fire, locusts, darkness so thick that you could almost feel it. And then the last plague, when the firstborn child of every Egyptian family died, that was finally when Pharaoh said that they could go. And then then the Israelites left, they were all happy, and then Pharaoh got angry again and sent his armies after them. And then eventually it got to the point where there was the Red Sea, and then the Israelites, and then the armies. So they were stuck in between the sea and the armies. And that's when Moses parted the Red Sea. And then when the Israelites all got safely to the other side, God made the water go back to where it was, and so all the armies drowned. So Moses was taking the Israelites to the Promised Land, and when Moses went up into the mountain to receive the commandments, he was gone for a long time, and the people started to murmur. And so they asked his brother Aaron to make an idol for them. And so they gave him all their gold earrings, and he created a golden calf out of those, and they started to worship it. And then Moses came down and was angry and rebuked his brother and the people. And then he destroyed the calf. And then Moses had a really tough job. He was leading more than half a million people through the wilderness, people who like to complain a lot. There was one time when his brother Aaron and his sister Miriam were both talking about him, and they were saying how they were upset because he had married an Ethiopian, and they were jealous that he was the prophet. And God appeared to them and to Moses in a pillar-like cloud, and rebuked Aaron and Miriam. And then Miriam was cursed with leprosy for 7 days until she had to repent. And so she wasn't allowed to be in the camp for 7 days. But she did repent, and then she was healed. For 40 years, the Israelites wandered in the wilderness. And then when they finally got to the Promised Land, Moses wasn't allowed to go into the Promised Land. I don't remember why. But he went up into a mountain and was translated, and that's my presentation. Oh yeah, and then there was manna too, so I brought cookies as your manna.
Sweet.
Yay, cookies. Karlee, didn't he hit the rock and command water to come forth?